So much talk about the offense, so much talk about Luke Voit, Jimmy. You can't say enough about Voit. But I think the overshadowed part of this Voit MVP discussion, and he's been phenomenal, don't get me wrong. It's ridiculous what he's doing. He's on a 70-homer pace if we equate this to a 162-game season. DJ LeMahieu is the MVP of the American League. I love the talk because we're putting Luke Voit in an upper echelon now, and we're able to discuss him there. And he's going to get votes. Don't get me wrong. I love it. But DJ LeMahieu is the MVP of the American League, and it's flying very under the radar. This guy has near a 3 WAR, and we still have 10 games to go in the 60-game sprint. He leads the league in hitting, 367, on base, 423, OPS, 1,056, OPS plus, 186. He leads in WRC plus. He's hit 10 home runs, so it's not like he's not driving the ball. Great defense. He's played 41 games, so you can't hold the injury against him. And this is a guy who came close last year. I think DJ LeMahieu is the MVP. And he feels like an MVP too, because whenever the Yankees need him in a big spot, and you know this, Jimmy, if you watch the games, he comes through. And last night, no different. They need him in a big spot. He delivers a double down the line. There's never a spot where LeMahieu doesn't come up big when the Yankees need him. And that's been the difference for a team that has desperately needed every contribution up and down this year.
You know, it's funny. I'm old enough to remember when people were worried about LeMahieu because he was coming from Colorado, and people hit inflated numbers in
Coors Field
Colorado.
effect.
But his hitting is not based on anything that Colorado has to do with the air or home runs or anything like that. So of course he's come to the Yankees and hit. He knows how to hit in Yankee Stadium, which is, I think, big. He's impressive in so many ways in the batter's box. If you were to pick one guy, right, when this season started, there was a lot of talk about, somebody might hit 400. If you were to pick one guy, I mean, it had to be LeMahieu. I mean, I'm not even saying that as hindsight being 2020. People were saying that, and here he is with a handful of games left in the regular season, hitting 367, as you said, a 423 on base. He's up near the top of the league in wins above replacement. And it's the true value that he's given, right? Because if he's not the MVP, he's probably top 3, I would say. I think that's a fair assessment. But the value he's given at the top of that lineup, day in and day out, he's the most consistent hitter in the league. He's a guy that, he has a lot of protection in that lineup, and that's not to take away from him, but you do have to pitch to him. But he's a guy who just produces, comes in, day out, puts his head down, doesn't promote himself. I don't even know if he's on Twitter, to be honest. He's not a guy who, bangs his chest. He just goes out there and he hits. And that's part of why I think some people underrate him. There was a similar dilemma that I had followed a few years back when Paul Goldschmidt was on the Diamondbacks. Nobody talked about him because he didn't put himself out there in that way. And even though he's playing for the Yankees in the biggest market and he's about to be on the biggest stage in the playoffs, people still don't see that with LeMahieu, I think, just because he's not this big self-promoting type of guy.
I agree with that. I think he flies very under the radar. He's very quiet. He looks and acts like a leader, though, and he looks and acts like someone who knows what he has to do and really has his mind in the right place. And it showed in the playoffs last year. The stage wasn't too big for him. I remember some people harping on the fact that in like 3 or 4 playoff games in Colorado, he didn't hit well. Can he handle the big stage? Well, good hitters can handle the big stage, and that's exactly what LeMahieu did. Biggest hit of the Yankee season last year was in a game they lost, Game 6 of the ALCS, and it was LeMahieu working an 11-pitch at-bat against Osuna and knocking a home run to right field, giving the Yankees a fighting chance late in that ALCS. You can't say enough about the guy, and he's one of the few of a dying breed in baseball right now, Jimmy, guys who put the bat on the ball. There's such a lack of outcome in baseball right now. We'll get to it later because we have a whole larger discussion about where the league's heading. He struck out 17 times in 41 games. He puts the bat on the ball. He has almost as many walks this season as strikeouts. You don't see that anymore, and it's so refreshing. And a team like the Yankees, who has so many hit or miss guys up and down that lineup, it's very refreshing to have a guy who, when he comes up in a big spot, even if he doesn't come through, and most often he does, the bat's going on the ball, and he's going to give that defense some pressure, and they're going to have to make a play on him.